Hello, I am back with another video, another Dancing with the Stars recap. Right. Dancing with the Stars recap, it's week 5, season 22. Um, so, how should I start this out? This review is going to be a little bit different than my typical ones. I'm not going to go over each couple individually, just because I feel like during the switch up week, every single season that I've done the switch up week, it's just been hard for me to really try and critique the couples because they're all new partnerships, and unless somebody is just downright awful and just nothing looks like it got done. If the pro looks like they tried and the celeb and them really tried to get a decent dance together, um, typically that's good enough for me just because the switch up week is so terrible. Um, on paper, I'm sure it's a decent idea if you work out all the kinks on paper, but um, the show has yet to really, um, the show has really yet to just make it seem like anything less than or anything better than terrible. Every single season, the fact that they take honestly, the worst part about it is that the judges, especially Lynn, take that week in particular to really crack down on the content of dances, something that they never do all the way up until that point. So this season we've had 4 weeks of a bunch of couples not having really any sort of, not having any technique, but a lot of um, pros having very little technique within the routines that they give their celebs. Not technique. I mean, technique is, but content. And the judges just kind of overlooked that. And there's been dances like, I'm going to say, Ginger and Val, their foxtrot last week, where they did absolutely nothing for 40 seconds. The first 40 seconds of the dance, they did nothing. And then like the last 10 seconds, they didn't do anything. So for like 50 seconds of a minute 30 dance, I believe they did nothing. So they danced for 40 seconds. Like, and then on top of that, for like 15 of those seconds, they didn't do the dance they were assigned. So it's like, honestly, they did 25 seconds worth of a foxtrot. And nobody said anything. Okay? And there was like so many instances, just not just like that. I think that was the most extreme one this season. There's so many instances where there's just been not enough content in dances. So we get to the switch up week, and we have Max as our guest judge. Lord knows why he's the guest judge for switch up week, especially since he was called out for phoning it in with Danica back in season 18, which he did, even more so than he did with Meryl, because that jive they did was absolutely terrible. It was just boring and lazy and lackadaisical, and there's nothing about it that was worth anything. Um, so the fact that he was there blows my mind. That's number one. And then on top of that, him and Lynn were just downright rude and nasty. And it got to the point where it's just spitting vitriol. It's like, I don't know what the judges have against Whitney, but she did something. Maybe they just hated the fact that she did so well during Switch Up Week during season 18 that they just had to trash her completely the past 3 times that they did it. So they trashed her with Michael. She was in the bathroom crying afterwards. They trashed her with Nick Carter. And then this season they trashed her even worse with Wanye. And this was probably her best attempt at the switch up since Drew, you know. Um, and yet she just can't win. There's nothing. They just went in on her, and like it was actually a decent routine. It wasn't his best. It wasn't his worst. Um, but it just, mm, I mean, it wasn't his best. It wasn't terrible. It might have been his worst dance, technique wise. But I mean, even the tango gets a lot of people held up. But still, um, and then you have Paige, who was ripped apart for Sasha's choreography because there was only one step with rumba in there, even though there was a lot of rumba, not a lot of rumba. There could have been more rumba in it. After I went back and looked, but there was more than one step of rumba. There was recognizable rumba steps in there. It was enough for it to be considered a rumba on this show. Okay, let's get that clear. A rumba on this show. Um, but they trashed her, and then Max gave her a 7, while the other judges gave her 8s. It was just like, but why? Like, why did you go that low and give her a 7? Just like he did with Amber during that jazz routine, all the judges gave her 10s except for him, Max, who gave her a 9. That made no like there's I, that made no sense to me. Stuff like that just doesn't make sense. It's like, why are you so bitter towards these pros? Um, why are you just like this? Why are you so bitter? Then I don't know what Keo did to Max, but the way that Max laid into Keo, I mean, I'm gonna take Keo didn't do an amazing job with the switch up. However, he gave Kim a routine. She seemed competent with it. She got into character. She really showed a side of her, like Carrie Ann said, that was very, very different from what we've been seeing from her. She had some great lines. Her arms were very beautiful. The way she was extending them and just kind of letting them go. She was. I saw improvement with some of her lines. Um, and I think Keo really helped her with that because I saw her kind of go through and finish most of her lines this time, whereas sometimes, she kind of cuts them short. But both Lynn and Max just laid into him, and I was just sitting there like, and this was only the second dance of them, and second dance of the night, and they laid into another pro, and I was just sitting there at 7:30, yeah, 7:30 Mountain Time, and I was just sitting there like, I don't need to watch this because this is just negative. There's nothing fun about this. I'm just sitting here, I just want to turn off my TV because this is terrible to watch. Um, but yeah, and then Keo tried to explain himself. Granted, it wasn't a very good reason for him to not have that much Viennese waltz, but I get it. I get it being 13 inches taller than your partner. There's a 13-inch height difference, and you only have 4 days to work with each other and get a routine done. Something has to give. There's so much that goes into a routine, into these partnerships. You have to learn who the person is. You have to learn how they work. You have to learn how to teach them. You have to learn how to respond to them. You have to learn how to, or then you have to learn to dance. You have to teach them to dance. You have to be familiar. You have to learn what they can do. You have to teach them the technique. You have to teach them the character. You have to teach them. Then you have to like go and get it to a performance standard, a week 5 performance standard. You have all in that process. You have to get chemistry, some sort of believable chemistry between you two, and be comfortable with one another. That's a lot to ask for 2 people in 4 days. That's a lot to ask for people. So the fact that they can even get 4 of those in, I'm just like, that's great. It's great for me, much less all of them. And none of these partnerships in all of the seasons of switch ups, none of them have hit every single nail on the head 100%. The only people who've been close were Derek and Lindsay last season with Carlos and Alexa. Um, those are the only 2 that have been very, very close. But that's it. Um, this season, Sharna was close with Niall, although there were still problems with his Viennese waltz. It was the best dance of the night, but I mean, I don't think it warranted a 10 from Lynn. I think it should have been straight 9s. I think Carrie Ann was right, but the fact that Max and Bruno whipped out 10s, but they wrote down 9s, and they were confused as to why it didn't count, but they'd gone the score before. That was strange to me. Honestly, if you look at the night, if you look, the only judge, I mean, the two judges who made the most sense and who were trying to say, hey, this is switch up week, let's try and give them some critiques so that they can go back to their original partners and work on this stuff together and not tear them down. Carrie Ann and Bruno were the two who did that and who made that night salvaged some of the night, because otherwise, if it was just Lynn and Max on there, I would have turned the TV off 30 minutes in. I would have been like, this is enough for me. But, and then the fact that Carrie Ann was the only judge that didn't have a questionable moment, that says a lot, because Carrie Ann consistently has questionable moments on this show, regardless of what's going on. She always does something that's just like, why did you say that, lady? Why did you just say that? Like, you make no sense. The fact that she was the only judge that didn't have a moment like that, the only judge who, along with Bruno, who tried to help everyone out and not just be nasty and mean and rude and just disgusting, terrible people, is just, there's something wrong. Strange to me that the highest scores of the night went to Baby Brother's original partner, Baby Brother himself, Val, and his switch-up partner, and fiance, and her, or fiance's original partner, and then fiance and her switch-up partner got some really, really, really kind critiques to go with their score, which, I mean, the dance wasn't that great, but it scored well, it was scored fairly for Doug, but the critiques that they got was very, 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 very kind compared to what everybody else got. 4 couples got very nice treatment. The other 5 were ripped to shreds, and it just didn't sit well with me. It was awful, and I really, really, really hope that they never do this again. I know they're going to, because they love the drama. They love the drama. They love people tweeting out about it. I took the initiative to just say, I'm not tweeting, period. I've never really tweeted that much about the switch up, but this season I was just like, I'm not doing it at all. I don't care, because they're not going to give us the partnerships that we want anyway, so why bother? So yeah, that was my recap review of this week. Dancing with the Stars, season 22, week 5. Switch up week next week is Famous Dances, which is another terrible theme and another terrible idea that didn't go well at all last season. But yeah, next week somebody gets eliminated. I am really worried for Kim, because she is my favorite, but with these large point dumps and the fact that they really trashed her, but then they trashed 4 other couples along with her, it makes me, and then they gave the other 2 couples that I think she could beat reasonably, or score as close to hers or higher than hers, to where they're kind of insulated by her. I think she might be lost in the shuffle just from all the hoopla. And I feel like, I really hope I'm wrong, and I really, really, really want to be wrong, but I feel like she might be next on the chopping block. If I were to have my way, Antonio would be going next. If the scores were to do what they're going to do, Doug would be going next. But right now, I'm really questioning Kim's safety as well as Jody. But Jody, I'm not quite as worried about. I think she's got like 1 more week after this switch up week. I think this saved her. But I think she's got 1 more week before she becomes a surprising, shocking elimination, which she won't be, but yeah. Anyway, that's my review for this week. Not really a review, but a review on how terrible the switch up week is and how I hate it a lot. Yeah, I will see you all next week, or I'm going to try and get a video on this at the end of this week. I really am going to try to, okay? With that said, I'm going to try and stick to my word, and I will see you all later.